Hey guys, Kamina the Koach here. Have we started recording? That was sexy, right? In this video, I want to talk about the relationship between abandonment and death for adoptees. I'm going to give you a little bit of an update on my reunion journey and where I'm at in my process. And then we'll go into the topic because it's a pretty deep one today. And if you can see, my mood is a bit subdued because reunion is no joke. So welcome back, beautiful people. Kamina the Koach here. This channel was for quite a few years, 2 years, I guess, dedicated to those wanting to work and live abroad. Since I've moved back to the United States in March of 2020, obviously my focus in my life has been redirected. I'm a late discovery transracial adoptee, so I'm obviously a person of color. I'm a Black woman who was adopted by a white family, and I didn't find out I was adopted until I was 32. So my birthday is in January, and I began my reunion journey, attempt to find my birth family then. I was more interested in my father's family, but it's lucky that I found my mother first because she was able to give me my father's name, and I subsequently found his family. One of the best pieces of advice I got from a book that I read while I was working towards reunion was, don't expect reunion to fix all your problems. Don't expect it to fill all your holes and supply the family that you've been longing for, because these are essentially strangers, though strangers who share your DNA, who have been living a whole life before you and outside of you. And just because you share DNA with them and you may share many traits that are similar, these are essentially strangers. So my mother is Italian, half Sicilian and half some other type of Italian, but full-blooded Italian, and born and raised in Texas, and ultimately ended up being as much of a racist as the white adoptive mother that I had. She felt very sensitive about, posts where I'm talking about microaggressions. She, much the way a lot of white Americans do, and felt threatened, I guess. I'm just guessing because she unfriended me. And then her son blocked me. Her son, who is ultimately my brother, but I don't really feel any connection. And I'm honestly, just to be honest, I'm not sure if that's detachment or if it's just really, and I think that it's very interesting that a lot of biracial, transracial adoptees express this about white mothers. So I think that there is some validity to that. But most of us that are biracial, have white and have Black, are more interested in the Black side of our families. It is unfortunate that Black Americans have lived a very unique and quite tragic experience in this country, and we carry a lot of trauma with us inherently just by being, Black in America. Additionally, it is quite unfortunate that my father's family has quite a bit of trauma that is their truth as well. It is unfortunate, and it is very obvious in my DNA when I compare my background to my father's background. It was quite terrifying to find out how similar we were in our character traits, and a lot of that probably in the way we are displaying our trauma. So I've found a sister and a brother on my father's side, both carrying quite a bit of trauma in very different ways, very, very different ways. Both carrying trauma in different ways from myself. In the converse from my mother's family, I do actually feel quite a bit of love right from the beginning for them. But I feel quite a bit of fear as well, because I still feel quite weak in my journey, and I'm quite aware scientifically that our brains mimic the brains of those who are around us. So because we are not living the same type of experience, while I respect our differences, I'm afraid to be engulfed by them, and especially from the fact that we have such a tight bond, we share so much DNA, that I could potentially start mimicking their characteristics that I find unfavorable. They can live their life however they choose. They can raise their children however they choose. That's all their business. But I don't want to. There are things about them that are wonderful, but there are things about them that I don't want to mimic. And right from the beginning, both sides of my family really, really wanted to attach to me. And a lot of adoptees like that, but as an introvert and a very guarded introvert, it's been very difficult for me. Mix that with the fact that I have a new relationship and I'm getting ready to move across the country. It's all been very, very difficult. It's manifesting itself physically. I've been quite sick with really strange illnesses and a lot of stress and pain. And I'm so thankful for my partner who puts up with all my neurosis. So, unfortunately, I have lost yet another aunt for speaking my truth, but I wasn't ready to tell her how I felt about the discrepancy she'd given me in a story, but she kind of backed me into a corner. So I had to tell her what my issue was, because I feel really strongly about being honest. And rather than just apologizing, she deflected. She felt very attacked and defended herself, which of course sets me on guard. So I've just had to tell her, goodbye until you're ready to apologize. I don't really care why why there were discrepancies. I understand we all carry trauma and it can manifest itself in strange ways. Just the apology, gosh, I'm really sorry that I made you feel that way, and that's all I really require, and a respect of my boundaries. That's all. Gosh, I'm sorry, or by saying, oh yes, I'm sorry I made you feel that way. By the way, when you said this, I felt that way. And then I would also, apologize and allow our relationship to move forward. It is unfortunate that without that, I just return back to self. For better or for worse, I know myself pretty well, even though I try to stretch my boundaries. So I want to say that I feel good for sticking to my truth, but it's not easy. And so that's where I'm at in my reunion journey. So I want to talk a little bit. I think I've spent a lot of time talking about my reunion, so maybe this whole video should have been about the reunion update. But really what I wanted to do this video is the connection between abandonment and the fear of death. The fear of abandonment being attached to the fear of a death for adoptees. And I'm going to do my best to explain it. And I didn't even realize that I had adapted a lot of what I'm about to say from the teachings of Gabor Maté, Dr. Gabor Maté. So I want to give him credit. First of all, I am sure that I have taken some from the author of The Primal Wound and many other people, doctors, psychologists who have written about adoption trauma. So without further ado, when a woman gets pregnant, she starts to grow this new life that's growing inside of her. This being inside of her is not aware that it is eventually going to have to vacate its home. This is essentially this new being's home for the first 9 months of its life. And if you think about your own home, the sounds, like you could probably walk around your home in the dark because it is so familiar to you. It is the same thing when the baby is inside of a mother's womb. This is the baby's home. This is its habitat. It knows the smell of this place. The sounds, also, if your home makes like settling noises in the middle of the night, you know this about your home because it's your home. So likewise, as this new life is developing and growing inside of the mother's womb, it begins to know the sound of her heart, the sound of her voice, even her smell, the rushing of her blood, all of this, the taste even of her blood. And this is home to this being who isn't quite human yet, because this being is not even breathing air at this point. So much the same way we do not know what waits for us we do know that death awaits us, that the baby does not know that human life awaits it. But much the way that we don't know what awaits us on the other side of death, a baby doesn't know what awaits them just a few inches away, just through the cervix, through the vaginal canal, that there is a whole nother world. The only world they know, the only home they know, is inside of their mother's womb. The smells, the sounds, the color, everything is only inside of the mother's womb. No colors, because you're not really seeing anything at this point. So I would propose to you to look at birth a little bit differently as a trauma in of itself. And it is the gift, I think, that the universe gives women, that they forget about the pain quite quickly, but it is at no point does a woman come closer to death than she does when she's giving birth. And it is quite a violent act. This new life is getting evicted quite violently from their home. It's not a gentle pull. It is muscles pushing on this gentle, flexible, malleable new life, evicting it out of its home. So think about being in your bed, comfortably asleep, warm and comfortable, underneath your blankets, and then suddenly your home starts to crush in on you as it pushes you out. How terrifying is that? And it can go on for hours. And for this entire time, all this being can think of is, I'm going to die. How terrifying is this? I'm going to die. The only consolation that this baby gets once it's out into the world, the only consolation it gets is that once it's out, it gets to return to its home to some degree. It's placed on the mother's chest, and it smells the smells, and it hears the heartbeat that is so familiar. It's soothed by the voice that's been lulling it to sleep every night. That is the only consolation after all of that trauma of birth. However, for adopted people, especially those who were adopted in the era when they thought that it was best that a mother not even see the child after it was born. So this child has been evicted violently from its home, comes out into the bright, cold, harsh world full of alien strangers, and is no longer, doesn't get to return to home. So I'm dying, and then is wrapped in something that smells weird and is hard on the skin. Their lungs are burning as they're taking their first gasp of air. And where am I? Where is my home? Where's the familiar? I'm dying. So right from the very beginning, an adopted child has this fear of dying in relationship to being taken away from home, taken away from the one thing where they find safety and comfort. Thus, so let's fast forward to an adoptee is a child, a young adult, a husband or a wife. So my husband, my partner, is my safety. He is my home. When there becomes any threat of us being separated, whether it is real or just conceived in my mind, even just him walking out in an argument, is fear that he is leaving, that I am being abandoned. So that separation from my safety in my home, subconsciously in my mind, takes me back to that moment where I had been violently brought into this world and been separated from my home. So in this way, I equate abandonment with death. And in this way, many adoptees whether consciously or subconsciously, fear abandonment in a way that is not rational or even comprehensible to a person who is not adopted, because we equate abandonment with death. I hope that I was able to explain that in a way that is that can make some sense to you. In my last couple of videos, I was talking about being in relationship with an adoptee, and I know that this will be beneficial to those who love adoptees and want to be in relationship with adoptees, because this is a very real thing for the majority of us, whether we perceive it or not. And this is going to really, really affect the way we have relationships and the way that we bond or we don't bond to people. And we may choose not to bond to anyone at all because we don't want to run the risk of feeling that fear of death. Or we may choose to grasp and hold on for dear life because that fear of abandonment, again, equals death. I remember when my guy and I first got together, he was like, eventually this will go away. And it is unfortunate that I've heard adoptees older than me, who have done a lot more work than me, speak about still having this fear. So the only real advice that I can give is to exercise compassion, patience, and understanding, and really try to understand what's going on. And when you see it happening, hug them to try to shut down that fired nervous system and assure them that death is not on their doorstep and that you're not leaving, but more importantly, that they're not dying. Whew, that was a mouthful. Anyways, don't believe the hype, what you see on TV. Reunion isn't all butterflies and fairy tales for all of us. Unfortunately, at this moment, if you need some help, all I can offer are a few words of encouragement, because I'm just barely keeping my own head above water as it is. But I will send you love, light, peace, and joy. Until next time, this is Kamina the Koach.